Welcome to Discovering True Health, where our goal is to provide you with cutting-edge health information through research, interviews with experts, and personal journeys to true health. Our message is a message of hope and healing, and our mission is to bring you on a journey to discovering true health, to not only find wellness, but to thrive. Hello and welcome to Discovering True Health, your weekly deep dive into health and wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our upcoming shows. We also have a lot more great information on our website, Instagram, and Facebook. All those links are below. So today we're going to be decoding our hunger. So we'll be learning about the different types of hunger, and yes, there are several, and we'll be learning how to distinguish between emotional hunger and physical hunger. And we'll also be learning some steps and tools to help overcome emotional eating. Now, a study published in 2018 stated that many people eat to relieve negative emotions like anxiety or sadness, and the prevalence of comfort eating ranges from 15 to 46% in non-clinical samples and 47 to 71% in clinical samples with obesity or eating disorders. Now, with the CV-19 pandemic, many of us are experiencing additional stress and anxiety on top of our normal everyday stresses. And as a result, studies show that 47% of adults say they're eating more. So bringing awareness and consciousness to our hunger and really understanding and differentiating physical hunger from emotional eating is a great first step to overcoming it and getting it in check. Now, I struggled with emotional eating and still do, but learning how to differentiate the two has really helped reduce how often it happens, along with some other really great tools I've learned. All right, so let's get into it. My guest today is Lisa Dahl. She's a certified intuitive eating and body image health coach at Lisa Dahl Wellness, where she helps women undiet their lives and make peace with their food and body. And her philosophy is to ditch the diet and to focus on progress, not perfection. Love that. So thank you so much for joining me today, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to dive in.
Me too. All right, now you yourself throughout your life have struggled to figure out diet and weight loss, which is what ultimately led you to becoming an expert on it. So can you share with us a bit of your journey and a few of the key lessons that you learned along the way?
Absolutely. If somebody had ever told me, the 12-year-old me, that I would help women learn how not to diet, I would have probably said not a chance. I became uncomfortable in my body. I remember for the first time when I was in elementary school, and I was told that I need to go to special gym because I couldn't walk on the balance beam. And then when I was in high school, I remember being weighed and measured and looking at the sea of girls waiting, hoping that skipping breakfast was going to give me a better number on the scale. So I have been dieting since I'm 12 years old.
Wow.
And I am a former caterer, so I love food. It's not that I don't like food. I love food. And I grew up during the world of, Weight Watchers, Snackwells, and Miss America pageant. My parents are tall. My brother is tall. And at 5'5", I felt short and used to always think that if I was a few inches taller and just spread myself out, that I would be more comfortable in my body. I could diet better than most people, meaning that I could restrict and deprive for longer periods of time. And when I decided to change careers about 5.5 years ago from catering to health and wellness, I thought it was the perfect segue. I had been dieting. I knew so much about nutrition. I was a full believer that you needed to be X to feel confident in all of those things. And when I became a health and wellness coach, my goal was to help women lose weight. And then through my desire to be the best coach that I could be and my interest in continuing to learn, I came across a book called Health at Every Size. And as I was reading it, like the alarm bells were starting to go off in my head. And I then discovered the practice of intuitive eating. And what I really learned was that I had my own disordered eating challenges. And from that point on, I knew ethically and morally that I could no longer support women to lose weight, and that it is just such a destructive way to live mentally, physically, emotionally. And I knew the damage that had done to me. And I really became my mission to help women learn how to undiet their lives.
Fascinating and so powerful. So, as you mentioned, you're a certified intuitive eating coach, and this is something new to me. Can you share with us what an intuitive eating coach is? What is the premise, and how is it different from dieting programs or weight loss experts?
Great question. And the words intuitive eating and mindful eating are starting to become very common, and they're getting hijacked. So the biggest difference with intuitive eating, which is really the antithesis of dieting, is that it gets you out of your head and into your body. It was created about 26 years ago by two dietitians, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch. And they had a traditional practice helping people lose weight, very successful. Their clients were very successful until they weren't. And they started to notice that it was the traditional diet cycle. And from there, because diets are very rule focused, they created principles, guidelines on how to become in touch with your body. Diets and diet culture, we are told what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat. And this diet is supposed to work for all of us when this diet knows nothing about any of us.
Absolutely.
So intuitive eating is based on 10 principles. And the 10 principles are: reject diet culture, honor your hunger, make peace with food, challenge the food police, those little voices that we all hear in our head every time we want to eat something, discover the satisfaction factor. Diets don't ever ask if you're satisfied. It has nothing to do with anything. Diets are black and white.
Yeah.
There is no black or white with the practice of intuitive
And they're
eating.
really focused on how you look.
Yes.
The amount of body
Intuitive
fat you
eating.
have.
Right. So the principles, the additional principles are feeling your fullness, honor your emotions with kindness, respect your body, movement that makes you feel good, which is very different than movement or exercise to shrink your body. And nutrition comes last. And the reason for that is because as dieters, as soon as we enter the nutrition world, we automatically go back into the calories and the macros and the good food and the bad food. And I'm good. And it's like it goes on and on and on. Nutrition comes very late in the game because it's really trying to help you understand how food makes you feel, and helping you connect with your body, helping you connect with your emotions. So there is a practice called interoceptive awareness. And something that will be very familiar to everybody is when you have to pee, you feel your bladder feels full. And you automatically respond and will do anything you possibly can to relieve yourself in the place that you want to go. As dieters, we ignore our hunger and often don't even feel those hunger cues. So it's learning to reconnect with our bodies so that we can start to feel those cues and honor those hungers and understand the difference between what is true hunger and what is the emotional hunger. And often we label emotional hunger something that it's really not, because when we're starving all day, then we get home at night or from wherever you are, and then you eat and eat and eat, and you consider yourself a binge eater or an emotional eater. And the real reason is that you've been starving your body because you've been ignoring those hunger signals.
Wow, fascinating. Yeah, that's a beautiful shift. There's a lot of beautiful minutes. Sounds like it's more about really living a quality life from day to day and not just these small, like, oh, I want to lose this 10 pounds. It's like, let's live every day in a quality way that feels good. And that's powerful.
It's really, one of the first questions that I always get is, will I lose weight with intuitive eating? And the absolute honest answer is I have no idea. You could gain weight, lose weight, or stay the same. I don't know your genetics. I don't know where you are in your diet cycle. what is your food security or insecurity? What is your stress level? What does your relationships look like? What is your emotional health? There's so many different factors that the one thing I guarantee you is that I simply don't know. What I will guarantee you is that you will learn to be better in touch with your body, and that you will make decisions on what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what do you need, and how to expand your self-care toolbox so that it's greater than the cookie box. So with dieters, we're on that roller coaster in the adult side. It's constant ups and downs and peaks and valleys. The goal is to get you to the kiddie park where you just have like these little tiny bumps, because our lives, everything ebbs and flows. Our body changes from 10 seconds from now. It's how do we just accept and go with that and honor what is happening within our bodies.
Oh, I love that. And it sounds too, like you were talking about, is really listening to your body signals. That's, our body speaks to us in these ways. And it sounds like dieting kind of just brushes that aside and doesn't listen at all to the actual body speaking to us. It's
right.
Like, well, we don't care. We're going to do this anyways.
And I use that language is body speak. Think about when you learn a new language, say that you're learning French or Spanish.
Right.
All of a sudden, like the vocabulary words, you have to repeat them over and over and over again to be able to identify, what is X equals Y in that language.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the same thing as learning to listen to your body so that you can understand the language that our body is talking to us. Yes. And it's very nuanced. And you have to be willing to be quiet, to be present, to understand without judgment what you are experiencing and how to work with your body. And how do you learn that your self-worth and your value is so much more than the vessel that we landed in? Like, we can't change that. And if you look around, if you're out and about and you look at everybody's different bodies, as opposed to comparing how your body is to their body, notice the diversity that everybody's body is different. And it doesn't really matter. It's, so what? How do we get rid of that diet culture, where that diet culture and the advertising and the industry is telling you should, quote unquote, be one way for their profit and gain. It has nothing to do about how you're going to feel, because it's not sustainable. The statistics of dieting, 95% of us will either regain the weight or regain the weight with additional weight within 2 to 5 years.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And that's no way to live. That's not living a high quality life where you're feeling good. It sounds like, you're going to be emotionally traumatized. You're going to be like mentally in turmoil. Your body's going to be unhealthy. You're not listening to, you're not connected on every level.
Right. It's really learning to become embodied, connect with your body, quiet the noise. And it's hard because it's so pervasive. And it's, how do you shift your thoughts? What are you looking at daily on social media? What are you looking at in your magazines? When you're getting together with your friends, are you body bashing? How do you change that language? And if you are a parent or a caregiver, those little ears are listening. How do we break the diet cycle for the next generation? Because if we're bashing our bodies as adults, those children are saying, and they're looking at you and they're a product of you. And they're saying, well, if you don't like your body, you don't trust your body, how can I like my body?
Right.
And the whole cycle continues and repeats over and over and over again.
Wow. This is wonderful. I feel like this needs to be like a course starting in kindergarten.
It actually needs to start earlier than that. And the answer is yes. We are all born intuitive eaters.
Right.
So if you have a baby, or, if you're a parent or a caregiver and you're either nursing your baby or bottle feeding your baby will automatically shut their mouth, fall asleep, push away, and, unlatch. As parents or caregivers, we always want to make sure that we are giving them the best, and we'll say, offer one more bite. And that is the beginning signal to teach our children to not trust their bodies.
Not to listen to their own.
And there's been research that babies that self-feed, with finger food, actually have a better relationship with food in their body because they learn to self-regulate. All very interesting.
So fascinating. Oh, I love all this kind of stuff. All right, let's get into decoding our hunger. And let's start with the different types of hunger so we can kind of understand those first. So what are the different types of hunger and the reasons behind each one?
So great question. There's the emotional hunger and physical hunger.
Okay.
And then there's actually 9 different types of hunger. And those are eye, ear, nose, mouth, cellular hunger, stomach hunger, touch hunger, heart hunger. I think I got them all. And with the practice of mindful eating, it's important to understand what type of hunger your body is craving. So an example is, if you look, for eye hunger, you look at a beautiful piece of chocolate cake with mousse and whipped cream, your belly says no, and your eyes say yes.
Oh.
Understanding what those types of hunger are. How do you satisfy eye hunger? Really, is it looking at beautiful images? Is it finding other ways to satisfy your eye hunger? And if you do notice it and you do choose to eat, that's okay too. When we take away the judgment and just recognize it, it's awareness and choice. You learn to respond versus react.
Got it.
And often, when we look at eye hunger or mouth hunger, those types of things, they override our stomach hunger because of the sensation. So that when we're present, we're satisfying more of those types of hungers. When we're mindlessly eating, they're not satisfied. So think about like mouth hunger, and mouth hunger is different for everybody. What satisfies me is going to be not satisfactory to you. I might love hot and spicy, and you might find it physically uncomfortable. And mouth hunger is based on your family food habits, genetics, cultural traditions, as well as conditioning. So I might find if you have access to farm stands, I grew up where peaches were sweet and juicy and succulent and dripping down my hand. People who live in the city, they're used to like hard, crunchy peaches. And that is their conditioning and their preference. So it's important to understand how we satisfy our hunger, our mouth hunger, is to clue into what is our conditioning.
Ah, interesting. While you were talking about chocolate cake, I think I had ear hunger.
Yeah, and that's another example.
I never noticed that before, but I think I just had ear hunger. I was like salivating when you were talking about chocolate.
And ear hunger is about the words that you're hearing. It could be about somebody sharing their eating experience, or it could be, the crunch of what you're hearing. So let's just say that you have a candy bar is being unwrapped and you hear that crackle. All of a sudden that could trigger, I'm hungry. Or the refrigerator door opens. All of a sudden you're focused on hunger, on food, what's inside the refrigerator. So it's very fascinating to take those pauses and to go through those exercises of what type of learning to identify your hunger. And it's not going to make it go away. It's just giving you more power and with the awareness to create choice. And you can learn, I'm actually sharing, I have a bunch of videos that talks about the individual types of hunger that you can find on my YouTube channel. So you can learn more about those as well.
Oh yes, I'm definitely going to check those out. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's more, like you said, about having aware, like I was never aware of ear hunger, eye hunger, any of these other types of hunger. And in that moment, you just made me aware of what ear hunger was, and I experienced it. So then it gives you that mental process around it. And then you can kind of have that space between, a reaction and a choice.
Yes. Touch hunger, because when we are deprived of touch, that causes a lot of psychological damage. So noticing, eating with your fingers is a way to be in touch and, with what you're experiencing. And touch hunger has to do not only with your hands, but also with your mouth and your lips. And it can be a very sensual, connecting experience. So there's so many different nuances on, it's learning to connect to your body is not just about hunger and fullness. It's learning to really understand that body speak. What are the messages that are happening within your body?
Right. Okay. So I will definitely post a link below to your, is it a blog you have, or it's a YouTube channel?
So there is both. I have on my website, I have a 5-day mindful eating experience so that each day you can practice a different mindful eating experience. And then on my YouTube channel, there are different videos that are presently being posted, one a week, on what type of hunger you are experiencing. And it goes through the 9 different types of hunger. So it's perfect timing for that question.
Yeah, fascinating. I will post all that below. And the 5-day experience, it's a free course.
Free course, yes.
And it's experiencing the types of hunger.
That is about learning the practice of mindful eating. So each day there is a different practice. And the good news with all of this is that there is no rules. No, you don't have to restrict this is about eating real, foods that you want to eat. It's just helping you become more aware. And to get the most out of these practices, I recommend not dieting, not restricting, not weighing yourself, and kind of put your toe into the water to the practice of intuitive and mindful eating.
Sounds exciting. I'm going to try it. Now, emotional eating. We talked about some of the statistics at the top of the show. It's a big one for a lot of us, including myself. I definitely struggle with that. What are some of the things that cause emotional eating, and what are some of the signs of emotional eating to look out for?
That's another great question. And we often are told how bad, quote unquote, emotional eating is. If you shift your thinking about it, it's actually a gift, because it's your signal that something is going on. We think, oh, I'm an emotional eater, I do all of these things. If you're willing to take a step back and understand what the message is, or trying to unpack what the message is that your body is trying to tell you, you can view it differently and shift from that negative connotation to healing. And it could be the triggers of stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, overwhelm, all of those things. Noticing, being aware of your pattern. If all of a sudden you find yourself in the pantry, or you're standing in front of the refrigerator, take a pause and think about what it is that snapped you to that space. Because we all have patterns. And sometimes it's not about what just happened at that moment in time. Sometimes it's things that have been leading up over a period of time. So it's learning to take a step back, look at that chain, and see where you can start to break that chain, and to create other tools in that toolbox other than food. And sometimes food is the answer. That is the wonderful thing about intuitive and mindful eating, is that we're not depriving, we're looking to fill in, we're looking to enhance, to learn, to grow. And then the other things start to lessen and to be so impactful to get out of that diet mentality.
Right. So it's actually a great tool for self-healing, to be aware. If we have an awareness around it, we can say, oh, that's my emotions and my body talking to me, then something I need to address. Now, can emotional eating be harmful physically and emotionally? I mean, obviously, I guess weight gain would be one of the negatives.
There are, the impact is, when emotional eating is no longer serving you, is when you have the challenge. Right. How much are you eating? How much numbing are you doing? Do you have other tools? Is that your only tool? It's really when it's a problem for you, when you decide it's not working for me, I'm uncomfortable, I feel out of control. That's when it's important to get help and support, because there is a path out of that binge eating, emotional eating cycle, and learning to identify the difference between physical and emotional hunger. Emotional hunger is quick, and all of a sudden you want a specific thing. Physical hunger, it's not just about your tummy growling. Are you losing concentration? Are you having a hard time paying attention? Is your patience kind of diminishing? Are you getting a low-level headache? It's learning to, again, I sound repetitive, but it's learning to be quiet, to create the awareness so that you understand the shifts and the nuances and what do they actually mean.
Got it. So what would you say some like tools, steps, or mindfulness practices we could kind of implement and use kind of around emotional eating to help us kind of deal with it and approach it and be more aware of it?
Give me 1 second. One of the first things that I recommend is learning to take a mindful pause, learning to ground yourself, connect yourself with where you are, what is happening. Take that pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling? What do I need? And those are hard questions to ask if you are not in tune to your body, and people, kind of think it's a silly question. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? I don't know. I don't have time for that. You don't not have time for that if you're uncomfortable in your body, if you're having a challenging relationship with food. And it's learning to be willing to ask those questions and understand the feelings, understand the body sensations. When I'm feeling tightness in my chest, when my belly feels tight, when I have that proverbial, heavy weight on my shoulders, what is it that's causing it? What are those messages? And what do I have to unpack? And how do I get out of my comfort zone? Because maybe you need to have a conversation. Maybe your needs aren't being met because of X, Y, Z. So it's learning to be compassionate with yourself, to be able to ask for some things that you might need. And self-compassion is one of the biggest gifts that you can learn to practice and give yourself. How I work with my clients is based on 5 pillars: intuitive eating, mindful eating, the philosophy of health at every size, non-judgmental self-awareness, and self-compassion. And my clients will often say to me when we're talking, oh, I feel like a broken record. I noticed this, I noticed that, I noticed this. Awareness is your power. Awareness gives you choice. And when we're talking about unpacking the bags with emotional eating, it takes time to become aware and to be willing to know, where do these patterns come from? And often noticing who helped you pack that bag, like when we're younger or as we've had experiences, somebody helped us pack those bags, those messages along the way. And how do we start to be willing to say, you know what, that message isn't true. It's not serving me anymore. I want to change my story. So it's not just, there's no black and white answers. It's really about being willing to unpack your baggage piece by piece and understand where they came from and to create that new story.
I love that. And like you said, it's all about really, cultivating this compassion for ourselves and, and the awareness of knowing and, okay, this is happening now, and being aware of what's happening is, a great first step to kind of being like, all right, what's going on now? And then kind of going down that path of self-love and self-compassion and healing.
Yes, a mindful pause is really powerful. And, meditation is very common today. And people, there's the people that do it, and then the people that say, I've tried it, but I can't do it. The practice of mindfulness is about the practice and to keep coming back to whatever, to your breath or to your meal or to whatever it is that you are trying to notice. Yes. Think about a small child that wanders away. You don't scold that child. You just gently bring them back and redirect their attention. Mm-hmm. And, mouth hunger is a great example, is to next time you take a bite of something, to try to be present with what you're eating and chewing and the taste and the texture so that you can satisfy that mouth hunger. Because when you eat mindlessly, it never is satisfied. You kind of look down, you're like, oh, well, where did it go? Right. I need more.
Right.
So paying attention and being present is really a powerful tool and skill. And learning to give yourself permission. When you give yourself permission to eat, it changes your relationship with that food.
Hmm.
It's going to be there tomorrow. You don't have to eat it all. If you choose to eat it all, that's fine. And you don't have to, because you're going to have access to that food again.
I love how your approach is not about perfection. It's just like you said, this gentle, keep coming back to it, having the awareness and, keep kind of guiding yourself back to the path.
Absolutely. It is progress, not perfection. And
Yes.
nobody is perfect. And when you give yourself some space and grace, and that's part of dieting and diet culture, is that it's based on perfectionism. And then when you can't be perfect, you bail and you go down that rabbit hole of, well, what the hell? I already broke it. I might as well continue to go and go and go because I'm already a failure.
Yes.
The practice of intuitive eating, you cannot fail. You can't. It's not on the table. It's not part of how the practice is done.
I'm really loving this. This is really an amazing shift around food and, the whole concept of everything around it, of dieting and everything. Now, let's talk about physical hunger a bit and really understand that. What are some of the cues associated with physical hunger to be aware of? I know you mentioned a couple a bit earlier, but just so we can have a good understanding of what physical hunger is.
And physical hunger, again, is different than the emotional hunger. The emotional hunger comes on quick. It's sudden. You need to, all of a sudden you're like foraging for something. Physical hunger grows over time. And paying attention to your hunger and fullness cues, and not to be confused with the hunger fullness diet. It is noticing the different nuances with your body. So when you start your meal, think about rating things on a scale of 1 to 10. 0 is, you're not hungry at all. And 10, you're off the charts. You're ready to eat anything that you can get your hands on. So if you kind of use that as a gauge and check in with your body, even every hour, how do you feel before you eat your meal? How are you eating? How does your hunger fullness feel halfway through? How is it at the end? Check in an hour later. What are you noticing? And, using that, do I have a headache? Is my tummy growling? Am my ability to concentrate? Think about your physical and your mental abilities. What nuances do you notice in your body? And they're different for everybody. Like if you have children, you might notice that all of a sudden at 3 o'clock, they melt down if you haven't given them a snack an hour earlier. We're no different. We're so structured by eat at 7 a.m. or at noon. That's not listening to your body. That's kind of a diet culture thing of eating at specific times. Playing around with, if you don't feel great at 2 p.m, do you need to have a snack? There's no judgment. There's no rules. It's not that you can't have this. It's quote unquote better to honor your hunger when you feel that hunger than wait until later. Like if you've worked all day and then you come home at 5 o'clock and you're starving and you plow through the kitchen while you're trying to make dinner and and then you say, oh, I was good all day. Well, because you starved yourself all day. Right. And now the payback is your body doesn't trust you and there's food available. It's going to eat anything and everything.
Right. And most likely
really
bad choices like sugar and chips. And
it's just learning to understand. And the other, and you just used a great phrase is that, quote unquote, bad choices. We try to take away that language that food has no moral value. Right. So that you don't get hung up.
Non-nutrient dense choices.
And there's different, right. And when you do, I'm not going to, argue that there's certain foods have greater nutritional value.
Right.
How does your body feel when you fill up on a bag of chips versus adding in some, something else with it? So taking the time to notice the nuance on how your body feels or how long you stay satiated. So it gets, there's lots of different parts that come together when you learn to practice intuitive eating.
Right. It's a lot deeper than that.
Yes,
It's just, like you said, mindfulness. It's mindfulness practice. It's really fascinating.
absolutely. So mindful eaters are not necessarily intuitive eaters. Intuitive eaters are also mindful eaters.
Got it.
So there's all
Lot more
certain,
layers here.
and and when you hear, some of the well-known diets out there, and they say that they are, practicing intuitive eating. If they have you weighing your body or weighing food, measuring food, keeping track of any of those metrics, that is basically hijacking the principle of intuitive eating.
Hmm.
So, I always want to share that information because people kind of get, oh, it's all based on these changes and the wellness. As long as you are weighing and measuring your food or your body, that's not listening to your body, because that's still that tiny bit of hope in there that you're going to shrink your body.
Right. Right. Oh, now we've covered emotional hunger and physical hunger. So let's do a little recap. What are the major observable differences between emotional versus physical? And what would be some questions we could kind of ask ourselves in the moment to kind of differentiate the two?
The two most powerful questions are, what am I feeling? What do I need?
Hmm.
Taking a mindful pause. And, it's, when are you eating? Distinguishing between the emotional and the physical is, when are you eating? Why are you eating? What does your body feel like? Is it instant? Is it sudden? Or has it been gradual? Are you noticing sensations? Are you noticing the hunger sensations within your body? Or are you having emotional stress? Taking that time to kind of create that mental checklist, that would be really helpful. And I can also share a checklist that I can make available for hunger and fullness, for emotional versus physical hunger as well, because it's a really helpful tool.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. I appreciate that. Now, what about thirst? Can being dehydrated or thirsty kind of read or feel similar to a hunger symbol, a signal or hunger feeling?
Absolutely. And it's learning to ask those questions. How does your body distinguish? And some of it is kind of like, oh, have I had anything to drink today? And it's not about, you have to have X number of ounces that is going to be this magical thing for you. It's, again, it's going back to identify, what type of hunger are you experiencing? And there's nothing wrong with seeing if you're thirsty. A really simple tool to know if you're dehydrated is, the next time you pee, go look at your pee and see what color it is, because the stronger yellow it is, the more dehydrated your body is. So there's very simple tools, and there's no, I have to drink, 3 of these, big water jugs to fill.
Right.
Notice those cues. And I'm not the proponent of, well, make sure you drink a glass of water before each meal so that you can squelch your hunger signals.
Mm-hmm.
There's a balance.
Yes. Yes. Oh, this is wonderful. Now, for those who would like to connect with you, and we spoke a bit about it at the top of the show, where can we all find you? Can you tell us about the programs you offer, some of the great resources you have on your site, and where we can find this 5-day free mindful eating experience?
Awesome. So thank you for asking. You can find me at Lisa Dahl Wellness. So it's Lisa, DAHL wellness.com. And there is, when you go to that site, there's a quick pop-up to join the mindful day, the 5-day mindful experience. And I can also send you a specific link that will bring you right to that page to get your downloads and your 5-day experience. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, as well as my growing YouTube channel. The programs that I offer, I always have one-on-one coaching available, And my premier program is called Body, Peace, and Food Freedom, which I truly, truly love. And the reason why I love that is that it is one-on-one coaching with a small group experience. So I meet with you, with that cohort once a week as a group, where we talk about, topics, education, interactive support, community connection. And then every other week, I meet with the individual participants one-on-one for their deep dive coaching. And what's nice is that people begin to really know that they are so not alone in what they are experiencing. And I just kicked off my newest group, and everyone has a different story, and the story is very much the same. And learning how to unpack those bags together and to be in a brave space. And it's really learning to, my goal is, in this group that I have right now, is just amazing in their ability to be brave and to share from their heart on what their experience has been. And we're just unpacking their bags one piece at a time. And it's just, I love one-on-one, and I love my Body, Peace, and Food Freedom group, because just how the women connect and stay together is really just been such a powerful experience.
Beautiful. And yes, it's so important, especially when going through some sort of transformation or, self-improvement. It's important to have that community and have that, support around you and others that are like-minded, going through it.
Yes.
So.
Yep. It's really, it's especially, we meet on Zoom, so it's anywhere in the country or out of the country works. And it's a great way for women to come together and support and come together on a positive way to heal.
Wonderful. And I'll post a link to all your contacts below, as well as the link to the 5-day free course that you offer. And before we wrap it up, do you have any final thoughts or words for those who are maybe struggling right now with emotional eating, or kind of in the weight loss kind of yo-yo experience?
The best gift, the biggest gift that you can ever give yourself is words of self-compassion. And it sounds trite, how do you treat others? How do you talk to your children? Because you would never use that language that you talk to yourself to others. So, turn yourself into your advocate, turn yourself into your friend. And one of my favorite quotes is from a book I read called Wake Up Grateful by Christy Nelson. And life is messy and magical, and it's filled with disappointment and discovery. And it's really about how, we all suffer and we all can heal. And when we do it with common humanity and knowing that we're not isolated and alone, it opens that door to be able to grow and to have an open mindset and to come together and heal.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom with us. That was so insightful and so helpful. I know that's going to help so many people listening. And now we have a lot of great tools to help us tackle our emotional eating and get that in check, and really understanding and differentiating all the different types of hunger. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about your body, the better you're able to stay healthy and prevent disease. And a reminder, I'm not your doctor, so please don't take this as medical advice. If you have specific questions about your specific health care, feel free to reach out to your practitioner. And if you like this video, please like and share it with others. This information could really help someone you may know. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be sure you don't miss out on our future shows. And stay tuned for the next episode of Discovering True Health.